A tab control can be used to add extra space to your form or to group similar or related objects together. Adding a tab control is a great way to organize your form, but it's not going to work very well if you're on a printed report, since you'll only be able to see the first tab when it's printed, and clicking on paper really doesn't work that well. Let's go ahead and add a tab control to the controls form that we made earlier. I'll right-click on it in the navigation pane and choose Design View. The tab control can be found on the Design tab, in the Controls group, and it's this icon right here. Let's go ahead and click on it to select it, and I'll come down here into my form and I'll drag out a rectangle. A tab control is actually made up of multiple objects. Right now I've got the entire thing selected, and over here in the property sheet, I can see my selection type is tab control, and it's got this generic name here of TABCTL6. Your number might actually be different from mine. Each tab in the control is also an object. So for instance, if I click on this one here that says page 7 for me, you'll see that it has its own selection type of page here. If I want to go ahead and select the whole tab control again, sometimes it's a little bit difficult. You can click off of it and then try selecting again, but sometimes it doesn't go. You can select off of it, and sometimes if you click on it again, you're just going to select the tab itself. If you want the whole control, sometimes you can click right over here and it'll select the control. Both the overall tab control and the individual tabs have properties that we can take a look at. So let's go ahead and take a look at the properties for the whole tab control first. In order to reselect the tab control, what you want to do is click over here just to the right of the last tab. I'll go ahead and click there. That'll reselect the tab control and not an individual tab. Now, if you wanted to add additional tabs to this control, what we can do is right-click on one of the tabs and choose Insert Page from the menu here. That'll add in a third tab. If you want to get rid of a tab, just right-click on it and say Delete Page. If you want to rearrange the tabs and put them in a different order, we can right-click and choose Page Order. That'll bring up a new menu here where we can select one of the tabs and move it up or down on the list. Go ahead and say OK to that. On the Format tab, we have some properties that we could take a look at. For instance, I can change the shape fill. Right now, the deselected tab is this gray color. If I want to change that, I can go to Shape Fill and choose a different color. For instance, I'll choose this aqua swatch right here. And notice the deselected tab turns aqua. I can also change the shape of the tab. I'll come over here to Change Shape, and I'll choose a different shape. I'm going to choose this one here with the notch cut out of the corner. Notice that my tabs now have this little corner cut. If I want to change what the individual tabs say, well, that's a property of the tab itself. In order to do that, what I need to do is select the tab, not the entire object. Make sure we select just the tab. So I'll click again to select just the tab. I'll verify that it says Selection Type Page over here, and then I'll change the caption property here. For this case, I'm going to go ahead and type in Lines. That'll create the new tab that says Lines here on the top. The second tab where it says Page 8, I'm going to click on that and change its caption to Rectangles. Now each tab represents a distinct zone that you can place other objects, and anything that you can add to your form, you can add inside of a tab. Let's go ahead and populate these two tabs with different objects. For the one I've got selected right now, this Rectangles tab, I'm going to go ahead and go up to the Design tab, and I'm going to add in a rectangle object. I'll just scroll down, grab a rectangle here, and when I come down here into this area, you notice that it turns black. That indicates that the next thing I add is going to add inside of this tab and not just inside of the form itself. So let's go ahead and click, and I'll drag out a rectangle. Let's go ahead and click off of it to deselect it. Now I can switch over to the other tab, this one that says Lines. That'll activate it, and I'll go ahead and add a line object. Let's go ahead and click on that there, and I'll drag out a line. Let's go ahead and click off of it to deselect everything, and now we can go view our form. I'll switch my view here, and you can see that I have individual tabs, one that has a line object, and I can switch over to the rectangle tab here. So you can add all kinds of objects to your tabs. Buttons, text boxes, and entire subforms can all live inside of the tab interface, if it makes sense for your database's design. Now there's one other tab-like control that I want to take a look at. That's called a navigation control. Let's switch back into Design View and take a look at that. I'll go ahead and draw a marquee box around all of these objects, and I'll just press Delete. The navigation control is this one up here in the Controls group. It's got the blue bar across the top. Let's go ahead and click on it to select it, and I'll come down here into my form, and I'm going to go ahead and just click once to add in a navigation control. Navigation controls function very similarly to a standard tab control. The difference is that a navigation control is an easy way to link to other forms or reports that have already been designed. Compare that to a standard tab control, which can have literally anything you want inside of it, including other forms. Now, I haven't come across a really compelling reason why a navigation control with forms or reports embedded within it is better than a tab control with embedded forms. Let's go ahead and just create this one out so we can see what it looks like. In order to populate the navigation control, what I need to do is double-click where it says Add New here. I'll go ahead and type in the name of one of the forms that I've already have designed here on my navigation pane. For instance, I'm going to type in Employee Directory. When I press Enter, it adds that form here instead of the navigation control, and it adds a new tab across the top. Let's go ahead and double-click there and type in Product Listing. I can keep adding additional tabs for any forms or reports that I want to include in the control. If I want to resize the navigation control, I can just select it and then hover my mouse over until I get this arrow here, right there, and then I can make it a little bit wider, and we're going to drag it up using this handle up here. Now notice that these tabs up here at the top got a little bit cut off. So what I can do is just select one of them, come over here to the height property, and change its height property here to 0.5, for instance, and that'll make all the tabs a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. I'll switch my view here, and now I can switch back and forth between the various forms that I have in my database. I've got the employee directory here, and the product listing here. And this is just pulling out the pre-designed forms here and placing them in a common interface. I should also point out that on the Create tab, we have this whole menu here for navigation forms. Let's go ahead and select one of those. I'm going to use this drop-down list here, and we'll see we have some different configurations. I've got horizontal tabs, vertical tabs on the left or right, and then I have 2 levels on the left or on the right side as well. Let's go ahead and just choose the vertical tabs left configuration. When that starts up, it gives me a new navigation form here with a tab control right down here in the middle. I can go ahead and do the same thing to add my forms, or I can just drag and drop. So I'll take the employee directory and I'll drag and drop it here. And then I'll go ahead and choose this product listing and drag and drop it there. Now this navigation form is nothing but a regular form with a navigation control added to it. If we switch into Design View, I'll use this drop-down list here and choose Design View. It's going to ask me if I want to save any changes, and I'll just go ahead and say yes. And we'll notice that the navigation form that we just created by going to Create and the navigation form and choosing this option here, let's go ahead and not select it there. All it added was a navigation control, which is this object here. It added a new header here with a little default logo, but basically this is exactly what we just created over here in this controls form. Let's go ahead and switch that back into Design View, and you'll see the same object here. So now that you know that, there's nothing really special about any of the objects that you can go from the Create menu in this navigation window. It's just a regular navigation control that you can add to any form. Tabs can add some dimension and organization to your forms when screen space is at a premium. Later on, we'll see how we can use the subform control to make a standard tab object function like this navigation form, while maintaining greater control over the finished design.